Initially I knew that I wanted to go back to grad school, so I started researching, and I ended up choosing the K-State program just for a variety of reasons. One, it was online, which made it very flexible for me to still have a full-time career, but it also provided the opportunity to come on campus and network and engage with my peers and with the faculty here as well. And also just wanted to stick with a university that had a strong reputation and especially had deep roots in agriculture.
Thank you for joining us for our Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse senior editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And the big news out of Washington, D.C. agriculture this week was the testimony of former FBI Director James Comey. No, I'm sorry, we're not actually going to do that. But we do have some news that we're going to get to here in agriculture policy on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. and really across the country here that did unfold this week. Washington, D.C. was not exclusively devoted to James Comey this week, just mostly.
Close to it.
Just mostly. But in terms of agriculture, one of the big things that we saw this week was an infrastructure policy rollout from the White House. Now, we had been hearing for a while that there was a $1 trillion infrastructure spend planned from the White House. They were going to spend a lot of money on infrastructure, on roads, tunnels, bridges, waterways, locks and dams, things of that nature. Phil, this is the first time we've really seen words directly from the horse's mouth, as it were, as President Donald Trump really starts delivering some words about his desire to improve the infrastructure.
Yeah, delivering words, and those are important. We don't have details yet. Size and so forth of sort of ambition. And a big part of that is about $8.7 billion for, but not in, for waterway projects, locks and dams, which is a very important to the upper Midwest and corn and soybean production and shipping. What was really important, the president went to Cincinnati first on Wednesday, came back to the White House, met with governors, secretaries of agriculture, state agriculture commissioners, and talked a lot about broadly about the importance of infrastructure, but in particular about the waterways. That was a big deal because the Obama administration was not particularly supportive of particularly the locks and dams in the upper Mississippi and Illinois River. So to have a president put a focus on that, put a focus on the importance of the waterways to agriculture is a very big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've seen some of these waterways that we're talking about. I know there was a lot of folks that are hoping for better things from the Obama administration. Things kind of turned around for him around year 7 or 8 of that administration, but the previous 6 were a bit of a slog, as it were, not only with the administration, but on Capitol Hill, trying to secure some more funding and a voluntary user fee increase and things like that. So
they get funding for maintenance, but in terms of finally rebuilding those locks and dams, which you saw.
Yeah.
In the condition that they're in, but actually rebuilding those, funding is nowhere to be found yet.
Right, and it's really being taken up by one major project at the Olmsted Lock and Dam, where they're trying a new construction theory,
River.
And it's not going as well as it should have. That was, for a while, was taking up a lot of the construction budget, and so a lot of folks are going to be very happy to see improved infrastructure funding and actually a little bit more money dedicated to those locks and dams, because there's some people that have been saying that's a crisis waiting to happen for one of these locks and dams to go down, and all of a sudden river traffic is stalled.
Yeah, I think the big unanswered question is, will the White House insist on private investment in the waterways as well as highways and other projects? That has been a big emphasis in the White House. The advisor in charge of this area, D.J. Gribbin, was brought in. He is an expert on public-private partnerships. Agriculture shippers and the waterway users are broadly very concerned about that, because they say you just can't. This has to be federal projects. You cannot impose tolls on the waterway users. It just simply won't be economical. And it just will essentially defeat the purpose. They have been strongly opposed to imposing tolls. Just say there's just not, it won't work. It won't be the return, and self-defeating.
And Phil brings up an important point. This $1 trillion is not $1 trillion in federal money. There is expected to be private input into this infrastructure project as well. And so there's, as Phil also mentioned, a lot of details remain to be seen about that. But this was supposed to be Infrastructure Week from the White House. For a number of reasons, that wasn't quite the main talking points on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. But a lot of news on the infrastructure front for a lot of people that have been waiting for that news for quite a long time. Also, on another developments that happened in Washington, D.C. this week, we saw a brief delay and then a brief resolution to some negotiations between the U.S. and Mexico on sugar policy. If you're looking to take a really deep dive into that situation, Agri-Pulse's Bill Thompson has a number of articles and a lot of coverage on agripulse.com for that. But Phil, briefly, from a 30,000-foot view, what does this mean?
Well, it appears to settle the latest dispute of Mexico. It increases the over sugar. It increases the amount of raw sugar that would come in to keep the refining sugar refineries in this country going. So the industry and the sugar growers are still not happy with aspects of this agreement. Still, there was a lot of reaction outside of those two sectors that this bodes well for the renegotiations on NAFTA that the U.S. and Mexico, the Trump administration in Mexico, could work out a deal on this particular issue.
So that we saw a brief delay from the Commerce Department on that earlier this week. I think it ended up being about a 24-hour delay, and they were able to reach some kind of a resolution. So
we still don't have the final details,
right.
But there's still some details to be worked out.
Right, and obviously anyone that's been paying attention to this program and other agripulse.com coverage knows that trade policy is going to be a very important thing to watch for this administration, especially as it's going to relate to agriculture as folks try to export their commodities to new markets or maintain the access they have to current markets, be it duty-free or otherwise. So potentially some ramifications from that sugar news that happened this week as the administration moves forward into future trade negotiations.
Yeah, we do encourage you to watch Bill Thompson's coverage on that. And continuing yesterday or on Thursday with Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, who was on Capitol Hill, and Bill got a chance to talk to him on the side of that as well. So he's on that issue, as well as we'll be following the NAFTA renegotiations as they get going on later.
And speaking of administrative action, or lack thereof, I guess in this case, about a month ago, Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue told farm broadcasters that he had sent a list of names to the White House of people that he would like to have in Department of Agriculture positions. Still waiting on those names to be submitted to the United States Senate for confirmation or for further review. So we'll keep on that for you guys. We'll let you know when there's news to report on that front. But still awaiting some news. I mean, we've reported some names that we believe are under consideration, and so we will let you know when we have official confirmation on that. But it's been a little while, and who knows how much longer it's going to be.
Yeah. It's the importance of that is really to make the really high-level decisions. You have to have nominated, confirmed undersecretaries, deputy secretary, all those folks in place in the various mission areas, whether it's everything from farm and farm programs, a new trade undersecretary, the regulatory undersecretary, and food safety. And so as long as you don't have those people in place, things proceed rather slowly. And that's not just in terms of putting out new regulations, but in going back and reviewing those that are already in place or making any kind of major decision.
So this is the first week back in Washington for Congress post-Memorial Day recess. They're full speed ahead now until the end of July as they work into the August recess, with the brief exception of a July 4th week working period. But we'll be sure to keep you up to date on everything that's going on Capitol Hill as it relates to agriculture policy during this time before the summer 2017 recess for members of Congress. But I think that's going to do it for this week. So for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.